Hey everybody, I've been asked many times to do an Instapot class, and I did 3 over this winter, and they were super successful. And so I thought I'd do a quick video for everybody wanting to learn how to use their Instapot. Today I'm going to do a super basic video, like super basic. So if you've used your Instapot, this may not be the video for you. I will do more with recipes and other things, which you can find tons of great recipes out there. I just tend to simplify it for those that are maybe a little worried or scared of their Instapot. So let's start with the actual Instapot and what all is there. There is at the top, I kind of start at the top and kind of move down. This is your sealing and venting. So putting it in this position, you'll see it says sealing. This is where you want it whenever you are actually cooking and wanting your pot to seal, to go under pressure. And then venting is here. It says venting. Depending on which pot you have, it may or may not say these things, and they may not be in the same position. This does actually get a little stiffer as the pressure comes. This is actually your pressure valve, and if we pick up the lid underneath, you can clean that. You'll see it is just a little piece of metal, and then it has that little rubber piece on the bottom to hold it in place and allow it to seal. So that, we actually had to replace that on someone in the classes, and it's super easy to replace or to take out and clean. So that's your top things. To get the lid on your pot, there are, on this one at least, there are arrows. They are hard to see though, I will tell you. So right here you have this arrow, and it lines up with this here arrow right here, and you'll see that has an unlock. A lot of people in the class kind of had a hard time finding it. For me, if I think about it as a clock, and this is 12 o'clock, you kind of have to start it at 4 or 5 o'clock. So here, you'll notice if this is my 12 o'clock, and then it goes back and locks in at 6 o'clock. So open and close. You have to make sure it's in the closed position so it seals. The top on many of the newer models fits into the slot on both sides. The older models do not do that. Going back to your top, your seal, this is your seal, and it is just a rubber seal. They can be replaced, and that is the one thing that I actually recommend using the brand name of. If you have an Instapot, I suggest you use an Instapot seal to replace it. They're not that much more expensive than the no-name brand ones, and I have had a hard time with some of the no-name brand ones. I'll show you somewhere in here. Yeah, here are my, sorry you're getting my floor. Here are my extra seals. I do have an extra seal that I use for sweet things, and then I just have an extra one in there. Your seal can be taken out and washed. They don't last as long the longer you wash them. Sorry about that. But it does take some of the smell out. So I do suggest washing them every now and then. You just need to make sure that when you put it back in, that you have a good seal all the way around, that it is all the way under that bar, all the way around. That would be the number one thing that I think messes people up, is they don't get a good seal and then it doesn't work. I have my second Instapot over here. I'm just doing what they call a water test in that so that I can show you the release. Okay, then inside your pot, you have your stainless steel pot in all of your sizes. This is the small one. This is the 6 quart. I don't have an 8 quart because we only have 3 of us in the family. But all of them have the stainless inner pot. I do suggest getting an extra inner pot. I think that's always a good idea. Underneath that, this is your heating element, and if you put liquid on top of this without your inner pot, it will ruin it. So I highly suggest storing your inner pot inside of your pot at all times. Once again, the newer ones have a catch back here. The older ones don't, and it doesn't really matter except you get a little more water collecting up here that you can just sop up with rag or something like that. This does come off. It kind of slides in and out, and it will collect liquid or whatever that you have there. The front of your pot and all of your buttons down here, I don't use a ton of those, but the ones that I do use most are the pressure cook or manual. On the older pots, it's going to be called manual. On the newer pot, it's going to be called pressure cook. The saute button. You do have a delay start button. And then all of your other ones, I use them only if the recipe calls for it. The yogurt button, I have not made yogurt in mine, but it is important. It does a very low temperature. Slow cook, I've heard works well for some people, and I think that's important. I'm going to switch over real quick to my other pot. This one is now under pressure. It's come to pressure. It's spitting just a little bit, but you'll notice that that pin is now up. So this is pin down. This is pin up. And it is giving off just a little bit of steam there, and that's okay. It'll usually spit for the first couple of minutes, and that's not a big deal at all, so don't let that worry you. The rest of your buttons here, you can use as needed. They do different things based on what they're cooking, whether it's a lower pressure or whatever, but like I said, I tend to use pressure cooker manual. This one you'll see is under pressure right now, and so the pressure cook button is lit. I just hit pressure cook. This has 1 cup of water in it. You'll also notice that the numbers are now counting down. They were at 2 a minute ago. I only put it on for 2 minutes. It is showing high pressure and it is normal. The keep warm button is also lit. That means that when this is done, it will keep warm. So what you're going to see here in just a second is that these numbers will go to 0. That will mean it is done cooking whatever it is cooking. And, now it will go to an L setting. If it's not Instapot brand, then sometimes it doesn't do L, but this is when it's going to count up. So it will now count up, telling me that it is done and it has been sitting for this amount of time. So right now it's at 0 because it just finished. But it's still keeping warm. So you'll notice pressure cook is now off and it's still keeping warm. Also my high pressure is off because now it's releasing pressure. So if I leave it this way for a long time, usually depending on what's in it, between 15 and 30 minutes, it will actually drop that pin by itself. The saute button, I'm going to let this count up for a minute, and then I'll release pressure and show you that. The saute button is kind of like a high. It'll get it to a boil. I use that a lot to sear meat, to brown meat when I start. Like if I'm making a roast, I'll sear it on both sides, and then put water in, scrape the bottom of the pan, and then put the meat back in, and then allow it to pressure cook. Gives you a better gravy. If I don't have time, I do not do that. I'm going to walk right over here. So I'm going to go to the back of my pot. On the back of your pot, you've got your plug. Always check that. Make sure that it's plugged in good every time that you're using it. I'm also going to grab 2 things from the kitchen real quick. To release this. Okay, so you'll notice this has now been counting up for 1 minute. And so I'm going to release the pressure. Now, the way that I release the pressure is I just flip the switch from sealing to venting. That scares some people because as I do that, you'll notice it lets out a good bit of that water, that steam, and it is loud. Some people just don't like it. It bothers them. So I suggest throwing a towel over the top as you release it at the beginning. So putting a towel over it, taking the towel off as it releases, or just grabbing like a wooden spoon or something. If this really bothers you, then you can turn it with a wooden spoon. I'm gonna do that just so you guys can see it. Now we're gonna watch this pin, and you'll see it fall and you'll hear it fall. Right now I cannot take the top off. As soon as that pin falls, you can. So it's just getting out that steam. You can't really see it in my kitchen, but I can see it barely. When it first starts, you can. And depending on what's in it, certain things. Okay, it should fall here in just a second. I'll be quiet so you can hear it. Still can't, oh, it's getting close because I can almost turn it. It turned just a drop. Listening for the pin fall. There it goes. Pin fell. So now I can safely open the pot. So it will not let you open the pot until that happens. So once that's done, once again, you'll have a lot of steam coming out. So you don't want to be right on top. You can store right on the side. So I just threw some water in here so you guys could see it. You'll notice my pot is still counting up and it's still keeping warm. To turn that off, you need to hit cancel. So if I'm trying to get it off of pressure quickly, hitting cancel will help that. It's nice to know that the default is to keep warm. And that's so that when you're done cooking, everything in your pot stays warm. Remember, this is a pretty sealed unit. And so whereas it does slowly let off that steam, it is a sealed unit. And so it will cool off slowly. So fairly well insulated. So it will keep your food warm for a long time. If I turn it off because we're not going to eat for an hour or two or something like that, and I don't want it to stay warm that long, it's very easy to hit this saute button and it will then start. I'm going to let you see this. It'll boil pretty quick. Once I hit that saute button, you'll see the time come on. I'm going to do that again. You'll see a time come up. That is when you can plus and minus. When you can add time, you can subtract time. And so if I want to just go to 10 minutes, then if you leave it alone, you'll notice it switches and it just says on. And so that's when you know that it's on and starting to come to pressure, except under saute. Saute is not when it's coming to pressure. I usually use saute with the lid off. I've been known to use saute to get it to come to pressure faster. So if, let's say I'm doing green beans or potatoes and I'm adding them, I can go ahead and have the liquid on saute. And that way it's already coming to pressure. This is warm right now, but it's not super hot. I do use hot pads to get that on and off. This lip around the edge, I clean it with a paper towel and like a skewer or something like that. It makes a great way to clean it. While we're waiting on this to boil real fast, it's already steaming, by the way. Not boiling yet, but there is a decent bit of steam still coming off of it. It was already hot, so that's why it's not going to take long to saute to get to a boiling point. Your plus and minus buttons, on the old ones, they used to not let you reset the time. On the newer ones, it does. I learned that in one of my classes. What else can I tell you about this? You must have 1 cup of water in most recipes, or 1 cup of liquid. I'm sorry, not water, liquid. So it could be tomato juice that is in with the tomatoes, the whole tomatoes that you're putting in, or even diced tomatoes. You can do a thin barbecue sauce. We use an Atlanta-based barbecue sauce that that we really like, and it's really thin, and that works. So anything with about a cup of liquid is what you're looking for. In the bigger ones, you still just need a cup of liquid. And then you've got, oh, you can see it's just starting to boil now. So that was a couple of minutes to get it to saute, or to get it to that boiling point. It does get really hot. When it gets fully hot, it'll say hot on here. So when that saute gets totally to its hottest temperature, it'll say hot. I may not get to that. I'm trying to make this video not too long. This is your trivet. It sits down in there. Great for boiled eggs. If you just want to try your first thing, put a cup of water in the bottom and then put as many boiled eggs as you want on your trivet, and let them go in your pot for about 7 minutes. I don't use the 5-5-5 method. I use 7 minutes usually. Put it under pressure for 7 minutes. Make sure it's on sealing and not on venting. Close it up. You'll notice now it does not want me to put my top back on because the pin's up, because it's boiling in there. So you usually either have to turn it off. Sometimes I can get it to go down without. There it is. So it just went down. I was able to close it. Now it is back in that up position, so it won't let me open it again. So to do that, I would hit cancel. I would have my eggs in there. I would not start with boiling water. I would start with cold water. Put your eggs in there. Hit pressure cook. I like 7 minutes. Let it come to pressure. So 7 minutes, it could take 15 to 18 minutes for the whole cycle to happen. Remember, you've got to add in pressure time. Since this is already at pressure, it's going to immediately say 7 minutes. Well, that's not going to cook my eggs quite long enough. I didn't just put eggs in there, but so 7 minutes is what I like for eggs from cold water. And then I hit pressure cook, let it cook. And then I usually, just as a default, let it sit there for a couple of minutes. And then I can release my pressure. Let's say this was done. I can release my pressure. Once again, we'll let that pin drop and then open it up. I then take the eggs and put them in cold water. They peel amazing. They make a great boiled eggs. Great for Easter time coming up to hard boil your eggs for the kids to decorate. So there you go. That's just a quick 101 class. I'll come back and I'll do some other things just to keep us sane during our life shutdown. But I hope that you can use your Instapot. Always do a water test first, and that is just put a cup of water in there, let it come to pressure for 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever. That's just to make sure your seal is on good and that everything's working properly. And then after that you can release the steam, that the pin does in fact go down, those kind of things. After that, I highly suggest you starting off with boiled eggs. They're super easy. Green beans are super easy. You can put fresh green beans with a cup of water. I add in a couple of bouillon cubes. I do not use the trivet. Put the green beans in there. Salt, pepper, bouillon cube or 2. I like mine seasoned well, so I do 2 bouillon cubes. And then lock it under pressure for 4 minutes. So you would do pressure, and then your time would be 4 minutes. And then that will, our pin just, you might have heard it in the background. Our pin just went down, and there you go. Once again, I was just doing water again. So those are a couple of things that I would start out with. I'll come back and post a couple of other videos for you. Just some really easy recipes. I will also take a picture of my boiled egg recipe that I did for my class and post it, and the green bean one in the comments here.